Israel is often considered to be a country of gender equality, and for me, as a women's rights activist coming from Israel, this is always surprising and unfortunate, because I see how our struggles for gender equality against sexism, against militarism and homophobia are being co-opted and cynically used in order to promote the national image of Israel, and often to do so in order to justify violations of human rights and violations of international law against Palestinian men and women. And this is, of course, unacceptable, because the struggle for women's rights is so intimately connected with other struggles for human rights. There is a long list of ways in which Israel every day undermines the right of women to health, to safety, to livelihood, to education, through its restrictions on the freedom of movement in the occupied Palestinian territories, through its refusal to develop infrastructure and transportation in Palestinian cities inside Israel for its own citizens, not enabling women to go to work, not enabling them to exit their villages and towns. So, and that, of course, without speaking about the demographic ideology of Israel. It is well known that Israel is quite fetishistic about Jewish majority in Israel. And how do you get that if not by exploiting women's reproductive rights and by seeing Jewish women as those who are ought to produce new population and Palestinian women as a demographic threat or a ticking bomb. Of course, this kind of politicization of our reproductive rights, which is at the very core of the national ideology, seems to me one of the most outrageous examples of violations of women's human rights, both on practical and ideological level.